Hey everybody, Jon Gums, Dakota Grappler, going live tonight with a special guest. It is, man, the legend. It is a personal bucket list interview of mine tonight. Dan Gable. Bill and I are going to have fun tonight. We're going to talk a lot of wrestling, Iowa wrestling, of course. And everybody knows that I like to talk Iowa wrestling. But we're going to talk the duel this week. We're going to talk about some wrestlers from North and South Dakota. We're just going to have fun. And I don't have to really do too much about introducing myself. This is our 154th show, but I'm Jon Gums. I'm the owner and editor of Dakota Grappler. Doing this for a lot of years, promoting the sport, and just love it. And tonight I have got almost goosebumps. You know, I'm elated to have a special guest, and I'm glad he can make it. Dan, just my very first question, where are you at right now? Location, and give us a little insight on, what you do to keep yourself busy.
I pretty much do the same thing I've done my whole entire life. Pretty much got up in the morning and went to work and work all day and then go to bed at night. Got a little more control of my life right now, whereas I don't have to be here, don't have to be there. I never let up on wrestling, but I needed to let up on the coaching instead of just promoting. I mean, I can promote, but I can promote through coaching. But coaching probably would have, you probably wouldn't have me here right now had I not stepped down 20 years ago. And the reason why is because 25 years ago is because I was a maniac. By that, I mean, I just was into it full bore, and I just liked winning so much because I was used to it my whole life. I mean, it wasn't just starting in wrestling, but before that, I won a YMCA state swimming championship when I was 12 years old. I won a baseball championship when I was probably 13, in the city and stuff like that. But for wrestling, it was, I needed some advice because I was getting sick too much. But the sickness was going away as soon as we would win. Of course, when you didn't win, then it never went away. So, and we just happened to win so much that it went away for an extended period of time during a lot of my life, whether I was a wrestler or whether I was a coach. So that took, 25, 35, 40 years of my life. And, it was a good decision to step down at a fairly young age, considering you could coach longer. And the reason why is because I think I'm here today because of that. Just the lifestyle that I was living and how much pressure I was putting on myself, or just how much work I was doing. And the only thing I regret, and I never regret saving my life, but I do regret, like maybe earlier in my career, it could have been a little smarter. We coaches and athletes think that we have to have certain things and certain lifestyles. Yeah, and you might have to, but you got to remember, if there's other people involved in your life, I mean, like a family, whether it's your mom and dad who brought you in, or whether you're married and you got kids, you got to pretty much think about them a lot too.
That's very true.
And so I did, but not enough. I mean, there was times when I would not see my kids, except I'd come home and I'd open their bedroom doors and they were sleeping, and then I was gone for a while. I would take them to school, but then when we have early morning practices, I'd have to go another hour and a half earlier before that. And I might not even see them at all, except while they're sleeping. And that takes a toll on the wife, takes a toll. But the thing that saved me was I hooked them. They were hooked like me. It was having so much fun with excitement of the individuals winning and the team championships. I mean, 25 straight Big Ten titles. I mean, that's pretty crazy. But, and then, 15 national titles. And 1 year out of the 21 years, we didn't get a trophy, but we were favored along with 2 other teams going into that event. We just kind of fell apart. And I look at my lifestyle during that one. See, I'm pretty critical. I evaluate a lot. And when I go back and look at that one year that we got maybe 5th or 6th, and you only get 4 trophies or something like that, but there's only really 1 trophy. So here I go again. But, you know, it was like, that was probably one of my wildest years with trying to corral people, you know, going downtown, going in one bar, going out the back room bar door, checking to see if any wrestlers were down there. You know, it's just like, you shouldn't have to do that. You should have just the knowns that that you don't do that. I mean, no matter how good you are. So sometimes when you really get winning, you lose kind of track of your mind. And you know, when I lost my match to Larry Owings in my last match after 7 years without a loss, it was because I was doing interviews. It's because I'm talking and going to banquets the night before, and everybody thought I was going to win except one guy. And that's all it takes. That's all it takes. And you got to do the right things. You can do all the other stuff in a leisure time. And you might make a few people mad. But that's the way. If you really want to be on top of your game, you need to do things how you have been doing them your whole life. And basically, for most people, there's a standard out there. But some people are different. For some people that are different, and if you prove that you can actually do certain things, I'm a coach that'll allow you to do that. But you got to have the proof. The proof is what counts. And then you always second guess yourself if something doesn't go right. But no, I am glad to be here. I love the Dakotas. I mean, I've coached a lot of Dakota kids. I mean, not only on Iowa's team, or not only back in when I was wrestling at Iowa State, I think the Wallmans. That's South Dakota, though, I believe.
That is, yep.
Yeah. And, you know, then, you know, I have Randy Lewis. You know, you had them guys. I coached the Shears, even though they went different places. Nebraska, you know, I'm coaching against them, but then they're on my team as when I'm the world coach or the Olympic coach or the World Cup coach. So what I love about the Dakotas is there's lots of land and lots of wildlife and lots of walleyes, you know, in some of these lakes and rivers and the Mississippis and all these other places. And I'm an outdoors guy. And so I got a cabin in Minnesota. So I'm, you know, and I love going to Fargo just for that event whenever I can, just because I got a cabin not too far away from it, like 3 hours away, you know, that type of thing. So, you know, the lifestyle, and, you know, I looked up today just all the names that, you know, that are pretty famous, and considering the population of South Dakota and North Dakota, especially North Dakota, there's been a lot of good wrestlers. Percentage wise, they have taken the cake, you know, and that means a lot to me. And when I'm going to go back and I'm going to say, you know, I could have done a few things differently. And the only reason why I'm married for 47 years right now is because they were on board with me in my wrestling. My mom and dad were on board. And then my family, my wife, Kathy, 4 daughters. Now I got 13 grandkids, 9 grandsons, 4 granddaughters. And some of the granddaughters are even going to practices for wrestling. But they're pretty young yet. Everybody's pretty young. The oldest is a senior in high school, and he's going to go to Iowa next year on a scholarship for baseball. Really good baseball player. Good. Yeah. So I'm following one of the grandsons wrestling right now, but he's been sick this week a little bit. But he's doing pretty good. He's a sophomore, kicking some butt. but he's still got a ways to go yet. But he's a baseball player too. His dad's a baseball player, and he's a football player. The one that's going to Iowa was all-state football too, or all-state football. And they got third in the state this year in football. So they had a new coach, and the coach is on board with a lot of like good sports like wrestling. But I have in my whole life, it was family. That's who I competed for. I mean, it was like, my dad, my mom, I had a sister, and then she got murdered. And you know what? I still competed for her. Yep. I mean, I still do to this day. I mean, it's like lack of communication could have caused her to die just because I knew of something and I didn't talk about it. I'm kind of a blabbermouth sometimes. And that's why you're getting away with me talking about it.
Hey, I love hearing you talk.
It's something I know. And family and wrestling, I know all that. And so, I can go and I can talk. So it's like when I had a kid in my class that hinted something about my sister who was 4 years older. And I didn't react to it because I knew boys and I knew kids and how they would talk. And so I was thinking, I even entered my mind to talk about it and go home and talked about it to my mom and dad about it, but I didn't. And you know what? It's caused me probably to be a little better than I've ever been in my life just because of the disciplines that you learn from certain things. I mean, a good wrestling coach teaches so much discipline to their athletes. Good mom and dad does the same thing. I happen to have a lot of good wrestling coaches in my life, even other coaches, but I happen to have a mom and dad that weren't perfect. They smoked, they drank, but everybody pretty much did in Waterloo, Iowa, probably back in those days. Working at RAF, packing, John Deere. There's a lot of factory people that when they got off work, they went to the bar. That's just the way it is. And in fact, when I got off work about at 7 o'clock, 7:30, sometimes I would hit the bar on the way home. And I probably shouldn't have. And it might have saved a little bit of incidents here and there. But again, I was lucky because I had people on board. And because they're on board. And they're still on board. I got all these 13 on board. And I love it. I mean, I'm not looking for anything to do by any means. I love doing what I'm doing right now. Because I not only promote the sport of wrestling, promote my lifestyle. I have a DanGable.com. People go to that, and then I got a nutrition drink named after me. I got a beer named after me. Don't tell nobody about that. But it's a celebratory drink. I have a 2-beer limit. But I'm of an age of I got a 1-beer limit now. I mean, it was 2 since 1987. That's when I put myself on a 2-beer limit. I never broke that limit because it would have caused separation. It would have caused separation. There's certain things that you just have to adjust to in your life if you like what's going on. And I do. I absolutely love what's going on in my life. So anyway, I'll let you ask a question.
Yes. I want to focus and just break down a couple different wrestlers from North and South Dakota, just a little name call a little bit. I want to first talk about Lincoln McIlrady. I'm going to do a South Dakota boy. Philip, South Dakota. He's a guy I have not got on my show yet, but I'm in contact, and I'm hoping to have him on soon. But, tell me some of the first instincts that you saw in him when he came into the Iowa room. Because, he's another, young wrestler who performed early, right away in your room.
Well, he already had 6 years of competition at the high school level, because that's the way you can do it, right? I believe you could wrestle when you're in 7th grade. But Lincoln McIlravy came to our summer camp, I think going into his senior year. And that's where I caught my attention. Just the fact that he stayed after the sessions, worked out with the team, looked good. And then all of a sudden, I believe he might have been the only guy, maybe there was a couple, now that I think about it. But Lincoln was one of the guys that walked right into the Iowa wrestling room as a freshman, and he didn't have to get beat up a lot. He didn't have to get beat up a lot. He actually could hold his own. Now, maybe not with the coach a little bit here. He grabbed me a couple of times. But, but I've got this psychological edge on these guys. They just know they can't beat the coach because you just can't. I don't know. They'd like to, but mentally you get that edge on. But Lincoln McIlravy actually I was planning on redshirting. Hopefully we had enough firepower to win in 93, I think it was, and didn't really have to use him. But he was still wrestling unattached in open tournaments. And I think he was like 21-2, right out of high school. And we're competing in open college tournaments, placed in the Midlands. And all of a sudden I get a little nervous because I'm a coach that I don't want to give up a year. I don't want to say, okay, I got somebody in the room that can help this team, and I'm not using him, so we're going to get second or third. We don't want to, do that, especially when you're used to winning. And so Lincoln McIlravy was the one kid that I waited. Well, there's a couple of them. Joe Williams I waited too, but Lincoln, I think I waited the longest to put him in the lineup. I mean, it was the middle of February.
Okay.
I mean, so you're already gone 2.5 months, and all of a sudden Lincoln McIlravy is in the lineup. I searched through the schedule, hand-picked the date for him to come out so he could get an easy win.
And he lost.
Dad didn't want him to wrestle that year because I already wrestled 2.5 months, 2.25 months, and he wasn't in the lineup officially, even though the dad was coming to these tournaments and watching, but he wasn't going to the dual meets, and we didn't travel and stuff like that because we were redshirting him. But all of a sudden, I panicked. No, I didn't panic. I got serious. I mean, how are we going to win for sure?
Well, I want to ask one little question there. Now, did you ever have a conversation with Troy Steiner? Because then he went down.
Oh, yes, I did. Yes, I did, because you had to have a lot. So
a national champion.
All that talk about me not talking back when I was in high school about my sister, I've learned that communication, especially in wrestling as a coach, and to my wife and to my kids and stuff. Now, and they're overboard probably, but yes, I did. And Troy Steiner was the defending 142-pound champion, and he was all for it. He was all for it. And I don't know if he was all for it, but he certainly didn't give me any hints that he wasn't. And he would sacrifice.
Well, we had him on a couple of weeks ago, and he said it was my decision, and I was going to do it because we wanted to be national champions. It's a team. It's a team, and that's what he talked about.
Yeah, and so, so the bad thing about it, you put the guy out in his first match, in a picked match where he should have won. I didn't realize the nerves in Lincoln would take place in Hawkeye Arena, Carver Hawkeye, in front of all those fans. He was so tired that he got beat by a guy that was much better. And so now it's too late. And the dad was mad. Oh, mad enough. But I snuck up behind him that night. I didn't want him. He was waiting for me, but I snuck up behind him, grabbed him by the coattails, and I said, Mr. McIlravy, we're committed. We can't talk about non-committal things right now. Maybe it was a mistake, but you know what? We have to move forward right now. We got to figure out how this guy can stand on the top podium at the national tournament and the Big Ten tournament, because nobody thought this was going to happen. Nobody thought this was going to happen. And he started saying, I said, I need you on my side because it's done. We can't lose a year eligibility with this kid. So we only got a month left, and I need all the help I can get. So me and you are going to have to talk. You're going to have to give me a lot more information, and we're going to move forward. And you know what? He just kind of was dumbfounded. I out-talked him. And what we decided, we decided to catch him up quick. Well, how do you do that with only Iowa State left? I think he had 2 dual meets, Arizona State and Iowa State. That's all we had. Well, but we had a week in between each one. So I had a good fan base. I decided to get as many local fans in the stands after basketball practice on that Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday of the next week, or 2 of 3 days, maybe 2 of 3 days, and get him some real matches on the floor. So after basketball, I had to have a good relationship with the basketball coach. So then after basketball practice was over at 6 o'clock, I had to get the wrestling team. We rolled the mat out, had to get administration behind me. I told them what I was doing. Everybody thought I was nuts, but I was going to have matches for Lincoln McIlravy, and I told the newspaper, and we had 2,000 people from local show up to sit in the stands.
And yell.
Yeah. And so he wrestled like 2 matches on the first day, 2 matches on the second day, and he got a lot of experience quickly with a crowd in Carver Hawkeye Arena, and he won all 4 matches. What's really funny, is because this is what coaching is all about. He thought he won those matches, which he did. We brought in a referee, but he didn't know until my first book came out, or second book, whichever one I had in there, that I told the kids they can't win these matches against McIlrady. No matter what the score is, you got to find a way to lose. Because we're a team. We're trying to bring this kid level up. He just got beat by, I don't know, he got beat pretty bad, I think, and might get beat by quite a few points, because when you're gassed and can't move, you get beat. So the guys, only told the guys if you're really beating him. But I don't think they really had to rely on that. But mentally, how do you go out and wrestle and beat somebody if you know you can't win? So that's their level probably was down a little bit, but it was just good enough to get him 3 or 4 more matches in Carver in 2 days. And that weekend, I think we had a big match with Arizona State or Iowa State, and I think it went overtime with Lincoln, and he won. And then the next week at Iowa State, he won. And then he got 3rd in the Big Tens. Then he came back and won the Nationals like 15-14.
Yeah, it was.
And he was down. He was down, but he came back, and wow, it's quite a story. And we won the Nationals that year. We beat Penn State because Penn State took us right to the wire in the Big Tens, and they didn't do so much at the Nationals, but it was probably one of the the highlight matches. There's another highlight match in my career. It was Big Ten Finals. Mike Deanna against Mark Chirella. I think that was 19-18 overtime. I think this was 16-15 or 15-14. I think it was 16-15. And he was down by 3 with like 30 seconds to go. Got a stall call and a takedown to win, or more than that, actually. Kind of escaped, stall call and a takedown. But Lincoln McIlravy, wow. He put on a show. I mean, we had songs. The Boot Scoop Boogie was his song that the crowd loved, and he could hit that move called the Boot Scoop, we'd call that. And he hit that in high-profile matches all over the world, not only just at Iowa. So it was a great move that he did. And, he's still doing really well. I mean, he's lives not too far from me, and I saw him the other day. We had brought him over for an interview with Flow Wrestling, and him and Jesse Whitmer on that last national, 25 years of me stepping down from coaching, and they were on that 97 team, and they both won. And, of course, he won in overtime that one, too. And I think he was wrestling the same guy probably back in the day, Chris Bono, who's, now I think he had some Dakota time.
Yeah, South Dakota. Yeah,
he's at Wisconsin. But Lincoln McIlravy, he's still a great guy. I mean, we had a good time just this week. He was over here. You don't see him too much. He don't get around in our world, wrestling world, as much as we probably like him. But all of a sudden, I asked him a question, and it was right, like current data, and he knew it right away. So he's around and gets that current data.
Does he have kids?
Yes, he does. And, he married a girl from back home, and she was fairly tall, and they're pretty big kids, and I think they play basketball mostly, and they're actually, I think most of them are, in college or out of college. You might have one in high school yet, but he lives on a farm acreage here, and he's involved in hotels. He's got a lot of that type of business. He said they're not going so well right now, but anyway, and you can't, you don't know whether they are or not. Yep. He seems like he's doing pretty good. Pretty good.
Next, I'm gonna, because as time flies, we're almost 25 minutes in. I'm gonna try to bring up a few other guys. A quick PG story for Randy Lewis.
PG, what's that mean?
Like not rated R or rated PG.
Randy Lewis. He likes a lot of what we like, right? Okay, that's okay.
He's a competitor.
You can't go overboard. It's like everything else. You just can't go overboard.
Mm-hmm.
People like money. If you got to make money, you can't steal money. People like girls. You should probably just get one. You don't want more than one. That's just the way it is. And right now, I think my biggest thing with Randy Lewis is trying to get him. I'm trying to get him fired up.
About getting healthy again
in LA. Did he talk to you about that?
Yep. And
it's like it's a reunion. And we had a great team, 7 golds, 2 silvers on that. And the only guy that didn't place because he was hurt, Joe Gonzalez, got hurt during the event. And when the LA Olympics come, I told him, I said, I'd like to have you. I think ASICS and the LA Olympic people are going to want to bring back some of those gold medal winners, and especially a team that won the outstanding team performance, 7 gold, 2 silvers.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I think, probably better should look pretty good when you stand up there and get introduced. And he says, probably going to have to be in a different weight category. And I said, well, that's part of it. Just leading the lifestyle that maybe is a little healthier and slow down a little bit. Because, one of his best friends he lives with is Royce Elger.
Yeah.
And those two are probably 2 of my, not wildest, but definitely great wrestlers, but they like to live on the edge a little. They like that. And they tried both styles and they know which one they want. And they've chosen that style. So it's pretty good. But Randy was, really good. I learned a lot of defensive scoring. If you shot on Randy Lewis, he was going to score on you. He didn't shoot so much. He did once in a while, but he'd throw really good. And he had a lot of other moves he could hit too. But he could stay in there. I think in the finals of the Olympics, even though we didn't have all those Russian teams there, I think he 10-pointed the guy. In the finals. I think he got a gut wrench on him and just boom, 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 boom. Flipped him around, and it was one of those things. But Randy Lewis is definitely helped start the program. One thing about me, he kind of fooled me. I never realized he had in him what he had in him. Not from a wrestling point of view, more from an outside point of view. I never really saw him as kind of a party guy or liking to chase girls or, that type of guy when he was here. For some reason, that got by me. And I kind of blame myself a little bit because I'm usually on top of a lot of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And if I know that something's going to kind of throw you off kilter a little bit, I'll probably step in. And I was usually where I learned it was after practice, get set in the saunas and they sweat and they recovered. And they sat in hot tubs, stuff like that. And I got in there with them and I'd listen and stuff. And I would pick up a lot of that information. And I probably saved a lot of kids' schools by, not flunking out or not whatever they were going to do, just by staying close to the group and hearing conversation. They don't really let you do that anymore. I guess you can get in the hot tub and cold tub and stuff like that. You can do it at all other levels. I don't know why you can't do it in college. I think that at that point in time, back the late, whatever it was when we had some kids die in our sport, and it was,
right.
But they didn't really realize that they were taking supplements or they hid that, and they put the blame. Oh, it's easier just to outlaw some of this other weight loss stuff. Well, a sauna and a hot tub and a cold plunge are part of the training ways, but if you don't get educated as a coach and if you don't understand it, then they'll use it in a bad way. And most wrestlers back in my days, probably until they saw me how I used it, because I never used it really for a bad thing. I used it because I got done training for 4 or 5 hours that day. I wanted to set in the steam, and I wanted to get a massage. I wanted to get I want to get under the cold showers. That's all part of being successful. Not only in wrestling, but you apply it in life. You take all those principles, that hard work, that conditioning, what to eat and how you feel. I mean, people say, well, that wrestling beat you up a little bit. Well, I'm 73 years old. There's a lot of farmers in Iowa that used to milk cows by sitting and doing it by hand, and they all got knee replacements. Now they don't have to quite as much. And there's things you learn as a coach. I might do things a little differently. Instead of running on stairs in wrestling shoes or even in running shoes on concrete, I would eliminate some of that stuff. And if I did it, it would be the exception, not every day. I'd find a way to help save their bodies, but yet not slow them down in their training. Maybe train them a little different. Instead of going hard live every day, maybe I would throw in a day off from a standpoint of let's just go skill work. Maybe we'll just climb rope and run sprints, and I'll give you a little more time off. Probably didn't give them too much time off. In fact, there's a lot of rules that were probably made up because of me back in the day. Yeah. I know one of them I didn't like. Right after a match, you couldn't take your team in the wrestling room and talk to them and go through a little, what you did right and what you did wrong. They said that you can't do that. That's we're going to outlaw you tying them up that long. So they did it from a national point of view, and so that was pretty crappy. But you know what? You learn how to not beat the rule, but all of a sudden, instead of me making them go in there, I just say, guys, here's what we used to do. Me as an athlete, I would probably go in the wrestling room after my match, maybe run a few sprints, climb a few ropes. You do it on your own. And you know what? They picked up on that really well. And it really was good because they were learning more independence. They were learning more about what they were doing and not depending on the coach. And so some of that stuff works out pretty well.
Okay. Now, next one. Now, I want to do this individually because I've known them my whole life. I don't want them a story together, but I want just a story for Terry Steiner, and then I want a story for Troy Steiner, not together.
Wait a minute. They came into the world. Well, no, they were apart.
Yeah. Well, the reason I want it apart is because almost every story I know between them, because they were almost inseparable. They slept in the same bed pretty much in college. Everything they did, they were together. But it took them basically separating. When Terry finally made the team and everything, they basically had to separate from one another to basically make one successful, versus the other one. Because Troy, my whole life, was better than Terry. And Troy was always just a little bit better than Terry since we were kids. And Troy had this extra gear. And, I've had both of them on the show many a times. I'd like to hear kind of a story from Terry's, what you saw in Terry or anything that way.
Well, I wish I'd have talked to you a long time ago. If I'd have known that coming in, I might have coached him a little differently. And maybe they got more, you go for help. But they were doing so well. They didn't really come in and just start beating up on people, or anything like that. Unless they got on top of you and put the leg in. They could ride pretty good there.
Oh, yeah.
They almost sent Tom Ryan home his first day of practice. You probably know that story, don't you?
Oh,
I didn't even notice it.
Tell me this.
They were alternating on him. Tom Ryan came in and first day of practice, he wasn't even a recruit, and he just changed schools and he picked on one of the Steiners, and then the other Steiner. I don't know if they if he knew he was getting 2 different ones or not. But they got him down and they beat him up, and he just about went back to New York after the first day. So I didn't really notice because I didn't know a whole lot about Tom Ryan. Tom Ryan really came to Iowa because he came to summer camp as a high schooler, and his 2 coaches during that summer camp were Tom and Terry Brands, and he really liked what was going on. So I think that was one of the reasons. But then the first day he gets there, instead of Tom and Terry Brands, it's Troy and Terry Steiner that work on him. And I think he about went home then too, but he stayed, and now he's doing well with Ohio State. And he almost stopped Pat Smith. I mean, that was the hardest match I ever coached in my career. And then the next year he got 3rd, but I think he could have done better. But I just couldn't keep him away from the girls. He liked girls. I mean, he was a girl. He liked girls. And so, that took too much of his time probably. Or his worry, whatever was there. Because I caught him like the night before the national tournament. He was on the phone and he was in an argument with his girlfriend. And I said, "You don't need that right now." He goes, "I thrive on this," So I let him, talk a few more minutes. But let me talk about the Steiners because, the Brands came in at a time when we needed them. I mean, I needed some adjustments in my coaching. I needed some people that would come in and be examples, and they weren't crazy examples. I didn't need at that time like Royce and Randy. I mean, I loved how they wrestled, but I needed some dedication. I needed some inspiration. I needed some hardworking guys that were to run through the walls. And, I really felt like the Brands came in and they were bringing that toughness back in, that toughness during a match. You better not start wrestling them early because unless you pin them and get them off the mat, because you're going to be in for a dogfight, But then the Steiners just had so much dedication to the mat time as far as over and working over and again, being there. They were always there. So they brought that discipline of going in there and drilling on your own and working hard and staying after practice. And so when you had Brands and you had a Steiner, you had not just 2, you had 4. And so that was like 40% of your starting lineup. You got what you really are needing, and it brought back a lot of what we were kind of lacking at the time. But let's just say, would you ask about Troy first or not?
Yeah, it don't matter. Either one, yes.
Yeah, Troy Steiner, I never really had too many issues with either one of the Steiners just because they were exactly what I was looking for. And they weren't like, they didn't talk back too much. Now as they grow older and they're coaches, and as I talk to them nowadays, or I should say the years before this, when they're still in positions, they fired back at me a few times. They have fired back at me, which I don't think they ever did when they were athletes. They just took what I was saying, whether they believed it or whether they did it at home, that, they changed their mind or they just did it. But they had that respect. And the stories for me was like, I think it was Terry that he just decided that really impressed me was he knew I liked riding stationary bicycles, Airdynes. I think he rode one all night long just to show he could do it. How you go on a 24-hour bike ride?
Wow.
We got on an Airdyne at 10 o'clock at night and rode it till 6 o'clock in the morning. Straight. I think it was Terry. Now, I'm not 100% sure, but Troy, to me, when he showed me what he was made up, when he wanted Lincoln McIlrady in that lineup, when he was the defending 142-pound champion, and he was pretty lean then. But you know what? When you're really disciplined, you can do about anything. And so he probably didn't miss a meal and still made 134. Now he probably cut it down or he worked harder. But the Steiners and Mark Ironside, probably three of the guys that a night before a match, I would have to stop them and say, guys, we got to meet tomorrow. I don't want you to be so sore, or I don't want you to get hurt. Come on, let's get out of here. They could, the night before a match, I usually didn't go an hour and a half wrestling hard, or something like that. And so the Steiners and Ironside are the three that I can remember that they just wanted more. They didn't want to leave practice yet. And I'm trying to tell them, listen, why don't you go into the sauna? Why don't you go into the cold plunge? Why don't you go in, get massaged? Let's get feeling good. Well, they always say, I feel good all the time. Well, I know better than that. You don't sit out there and wrestle. You got to have some kind of a peaking type of thing where you do actually give your body some rest. And so that all-night bike ride, that probably wasn't the smartest thing in the world. But he proved he could do it, and he did it. Mm-hmm. So, I don't really have a lot of – the Brands, first time they ever come to Iowa, they were coming down for the recruiting visit. I get a call. They said they got a car wreck. They ran into a truck. I don't know. They're probably parked. They didn't look at it. I don't know. But we'll be about 2 hours late, We're going to have to call somebody, get a ride or something. But, that was the start of some pretty crazy times. Because, the Brands, that edge of the mat, they would wrestle through the edge. The referee needed to be on top of his whistle because they weren't going to stop if the referee wasn't going to blow that whistle. And so, every once in a while they lost, not a team point, I don't think, but, a penalty point for maybe wrestling too far off the mat. But you can't take what they have and what they contributed as athletes and now as coaches and all of them as coaches away from them because they are unbelievable when it comes to wanting to win in the sport of wrestling.
Okay, awesome. Bill, I'll let you. I've been hogging this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, these are great stories. It's a lot of fun. I want to just ask about a couple of people that are not from the Dakotas, but one of them you mentioned there was a beer named after you and an energy drink, but there's also a heavyweight that's named after you. Give me your thoughts on what you've seen out of Gable Stevenson and how much fun he's been.
Well, he's the only guy. There's a few Gables out there besides beer and nutrition drink. There's a first name. In fact, there's a girl in the state of Iowa from Osage, Iowa named Gable. She just got second in the state this last weekend.
That's awesome.
But so it doesn't matter if you're a boy or a girl. It's Gable's a neutral name.
It's a good name.
But I would say I've never. This is the first time that somebody named their middle name Dan. Did you know that? Gable, Dan.
Gable, Dan.
That's like, what? And the dad told me that he didn't really want to do it, but the mom wanted to do it. So moms usually went out, don't they?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
In and that's why I'm still married 47 years.
Yeah, that helps. Yep.
Yeah. So, that was, actually, I watched him a few years ago. And I thought he had some coaching yet to do yet. By that, they needed to step in. I think he was maybe his younger years at the University of Minnesota. I didn't really see him when he was an athlete in high school, and I know he was winning. But when I watched him, he had that flair immediately, but too much. I thought he,
right.
A little bit like, you better blow that whistle when you're going out of bounds or they're not going to stop, with the Brands. Well, that's not a bad thing, but you better be on top of the game, referee. So the same way with Gable Stevenson, he was like showboating a little bit.
Yep.
And, so that's why he's a pretty natural what he's going to do. It's not going to take much because he can probably do it. He's already shown. But in college wrestling and even with the fans, there is a certain amount of sportsmanship. And you can take it to the edge, but you better not go over that edge. And he was almost getting out of character, and I could tell. So I have to give a lot of the credit to the Minnesota coaches stepping in, keeping and getting him better too. I think once they captured his ability to listen and reason, he became a really good wrestler. And even though he was always good, I think the last couple of years he really, really came on. I'm not sure, how he's going to end up. He's got 2 years eligibility, I think, yet. And I think he talks about this as his last year.
Right.
And so, and speaking of what, and the coach has stepped in, what's kind of crazy is, they've opened up so much in the NCAA where you can make money and you can be a pro and you can do this, you can do that. But I think just what happened down in Stillwater, Oklahoma shows that we better have some control.
Mm-hmm.
He was off in one of these events speaking to kids, and he'd already been to practice probably, and he's already spoke to kids, and he's coming back home and getting a little carried away with his driving, it looks like. And, it's kids are kids, teenagers. I mean, Gable Stevenson, is he still?
I think he's 20.
Okay, he's finally got out of his teenage age.
Yep.
And so there's still important roles for people to have in that kid's life yet.
Yep.
In fact, I don't think parents should probably ever stop giving an important role to their kids.
That's right.
No matter when, because that's just how we're going to have a better world.
Yep.
If the parent is pretty good, and then if the parent's not so good, then that's it. That's too bad.
Yep. Well, the other one that I'd like to bring up, and it's just partly just because of what day it is, right? On this day here a few years ago, we lost David Schultz. Give me some memories and some stories you have, watching a guy like Dave wrestle, maybe collegiately and internationally.
Yeah, he's he liked his way. And if he didn't get it, he would hurt you. He could.
Yep.
He almost learned a lot of holds that weren't totally legal in this type of wrestling. And if he was pushed to a brink, he might step out of that little area of being legal, illegal, and push it. He was an unbelievable competitor from that point of view. So Dave Schultz, he went to Tbilisi when he was in high school, the tournament, and I think he placed maybe even early on, or maybe he didn't place. I'm not sure at that time, but he definitely went back. He won over the world in wrestling, but up until a point of, just like we talked about Gable Stevenson, if all of a sudden there was going to be an illegal thing that you don't do, because he went overseas to wrestle in some of these big tournaments, like in Tbilisi, and he had a front headlock, but it was an illegal front headlock.
Yeah, people passed out.
Yeah, so they disallowed him. As soon as he went to front headlock, referee blow the whistle and stand him up. And so, to his disadvantage, instead of just learning the fundamentals, and you could probably choke a little, but you don't need to get a reputation for that. But he was an unbelievable competitor, and and his brother was unbelievable. He was a gymnast when he was a kid. He could bounce. Kind of reminded me of Gable Stevenson a little bit, just the way he could do backflips. I remember they both did backflips, and so that's kind of interesting. Of course, I think Gable might have beat him in the height.
He really gets high, doesn't he?
He's got those big legs and he can bounce. He's got like springs. Boom. But Mark Schultz wasn't too far behind. But anyway, Dave Schultz took him. He had to go to, I think he went to UCLA, and then he went to Oklahoma University. And I can see why he went to Oklahoma, because the coach was Stan Abel. And if you know anything about Stan, he was an unbelievable talker. He gave me a lot of help in my wrestling. But when I came back after the Olympics, and what's funny about Stan Abel is he goes, you remember I told you all that stuff about me? And I go, listen, Stan, I sucked that in. I loved it. You made me go to a higher level of dedication and from basically what you were telling me about all this work that you did and just running these stairs. And he started laughing. I said, now that you're already an Olympic champion, I'm going to tell you the truth. I did none of that. He says, I just told you because I know you would eat it up and help you. So, he's kind of a little BSer, but that was, Stan Abel, and good man, national champ a couple times probably. And he helped me in my career, even though he may not have been totally straight across the board. But Dave Schultz, no matter where he went, he made a name for himself. And I mean, as a wrestler, and the people, even though they were blowing him up, not giving him his choke, they loved him too. Yeah. They loved his wrestling because he actually was an unbelievable wrestler. He worked at it. He was one of the wrestlers that probably worked at skills and techniques more than anybody. And so I did mess him up once. 94 team that went to the Worlds. I was the coach, but they only brought me in for a week. And these unbelievable team, but they just placed like third in the Goodwill games out of 4 teams. And I said, I got to do something to shock these guys, because I watched them practice and I said, oh my gosh, they don't look very good. So I put them on the horse track race, I think up DuPont, where he had about 6 inches of sawdust. And I made them run, the whole team run around about 5-6 times. It was one of these things that I made their damn legs so sore that they didn't recover in time. And so we went to the games. I thought 7 days would be enough, but they were still sore, and we did not have a great performance in '94, but we still had a bronze and a silver. But it was a lesson learned for me, and it was a good lesson learned for me, because I was going to do the same thing with my team in '97 because I wanted to win so bad, because my last year and Oklahoma State was supposed to win. I almost made that same mistake, but I went back to '94 and I said, wow, I'm doing the same thing. Let's back off. You got a good team. Let's just get them healthy. They're going to wrestle a lot better when they're healthy than when they're sore. So that's kind of what I was talking about with Steiners.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the big duel, 1 versus 2 this weekend. Yeah. So we got the Penn State, and Iowa duel. And I tell you what, I am a big Iowa fan, but Penn State has looked great. So I'm looking forward to this as much as anything I have so far in the college season.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's looked good this year except for Penn State just recently. I do think that what we've been going through has taken us out of some coaching ability, taken us out of team work, taken us out of being in our own ways of training.
You mean COVID in general?
Yeah, absolutely. And because of that, I when I watched Penn State and Michigan wrestle the other day, Michigan just had a couple new guys in the lineup, and they had somebody out of the lineup, and I don't think they were used to actually being in the limelight as much. They just didn't look like they were ready to wrestle. But it was the first time that I saw Penn State kind of step up. So it's probably a good time to start stepping up right now.
Right, yeah.
So with the team, Penn State coming to Iowa, it wouldn't be a bad idea for Iowa if they're going to, get the job done. I mean, we still got a month and a half left, but you got to show some pretty good signs consistently at every weight. And I don't think anybody except for that last dual meet with Penn State they stepped up against Michigan. I don't think anybody's done that this year. And if Iowa steps up, then it's going to be a great match. A lot of barn burning, a lot of whatever. Hopefully the 15,500 Iowa fans will, scare them a little, but they're not too scared. I mean, they get a lot of fans. It's really going to be exciting. With Spencer Lee not in there, and I think they got a really good kid there, but you can't get him beat too much. He's had tough matches, and he's going to have another tough match. But he's got to win those tough matches more than he loses them. But I really like the kid. So I really like his shots, and I really like the way he competes. But he's just out of high school, and that's pretty crazy. So I think the big thing at 33 with DeSanto and Bravo Young is whether DeSanto can shoot to both sides now. If he can shoot to both sides, because he's going to give him one side. He's never proven that he can, right? I mean, I don't know. I can't think of the last takedown he's gotten against a good guy that didn't come off of that elbow control, on that side. So it's pretty obvious what you need. It's just when you get it, if you're working at it. 49 and 57, 41. I mean, those are barn burners in the Big Tens and Nationals. But I have to admit, Jaden hasn't looked like he looked in the Big Tens,
right?
Or even in the finals. He's just, and Lee has pretty well. So that's just he's going to have to step up. But they got a couple guys there that Penn State that that I'm sure that Murin and Caleb Young probably. I'm not sure who they're going to have at 57, but they're winnable. They're winnable. But I'm sure that the other kids are winnable too. That's just kind of where we are. Marinelli's been he needs to eat his Wheaties a little more, I think. He just he needs that power that he has, and he's got to get that and use it like he has it, because he just hasn't. He's kind of stood around a lot. I never saw him stand around as much, and I think so. There's a lot more to him. Some of these guys that we haven't seen a lot from Iowa do what they're capable of doing. We know we've already seen it, so we know they can do it. Now, the only guy that I would say that Kimmer's probably limited a little bit because of injury. And
yeah, he's really looked good though. I mean, not against the toughest of competition, maybe, but he's looked good. I thought
that fall that the kid that was pretty good.
Yep, absolutely.
But yeah, he's a little bit limited, and I think if he wrestles where he's really good at, then he's okay. But it's he's got a tough opponent there, Strachey. So 84, Brooks and Assad. I mean, Brooks probably got to have the edge there, but Assad's pretty good most of the time. Not all the time, and that's you got to be good all the time to be able to step up and beat a national champ. Warner and Dean. Again, there's transfers. How many transfers? 1, 2. Well, they brought back that Berg out of Dakota, right?
Yep. From South Dakota State. Yep.
Yeah, they brought him back to beef up their lineup, probably.
Yep.
And he probably has done that. Just like they brought in a transfer from Central Michigan, right?
Yep, Central Michigan at 125, and
it's kind of
Cornell at 197. Yep.
Yeah, it's kind of not sad, but it makes the other teams like 20 through 65 right now. I don't know how many people are wanting to transfer to those.
Yep.
Right.
To be able to get on a winning national championship team. So that's like kind of gives that an edge. And I'm not so sure it should be as easy as it is right now. I mean, from my understanding is you could get mad at your coach and walk out of the room and adios, buddy. And he'll show up in another team real quick.
Yep.
I'm not so sure that's totally right. They'll get it right, but we're gonna, there's gonna be some mistakes made. Maybe like the Oklahoma State thing that's just happening. Maybe that's not the case there, but they can't. You got to have a little bit of control and not have to. As a coach, you got to be able to deliver a good speech to a kid and not have him get mad and walk away, just like your own children. I mean, at least they're tied to you as a children, but they're not tied much as a college athlete anymore. So anyway, and it looks like the heavyweight. Even I think Cassioppi's beaten this Kirk Levitt.
Yeah, Kirk Levitt. Yep.
But he looked pretty good the other night.
He looked really good, didn't he, the other night? Yeah. So I think Kirk Levitt's a little different athlete than we were seeing last year when Cassioppi and Mason Paris both beat him. Pretty handily.
I was going to have to step up to what they were doing in the Big Tens last year to be able to come away with a win. And why not? I mean, if you're capable and if you've shown, but again, it's not the national tournament, but you got to see some light. And I think right now Iowa needs a little light just to be able to perform with Penn State. So, that's kind of my rundown.
Well, here, I got a question for you, and the answer might be easy, right? Because I think your focus obviously seems to be right every year. The focus was on the national tournament, right? 25 Big Ten titles, I don't know, 15 national championships or something like that, right?
Yeah, I had 21 years, but I was 2 as an assistant and 2 as an administrator.
There you go,
in a row.
And so. If we compare the regular season, right, we compare duels, which you didn't lose very many of those also. So those were very important too. How important would a duel like this be to you when you were coaching as opposed to the national tournament or the Big Tens?
Well, you only can answer that when it's done, because,
right.
if you end up walking away with the national title, you're going to feel okay.
Yeah, the duel didn't matter.
You know what? How many times can you beat and still win? That's the thing. You got to show some signs.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that sign has been shown. And here, all of a sudden, I'm saying that when I was undefeated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But, again, have they wrestled anybody like this? I don't think so. Just doesn't seem that way. But it's definitely good wrestling news. There's people are watching all over. I can tell you right now, Putin's going to be watching. And the Iranian prime minister or whoever, they'll be watching. The top countries in the world will probably know about the Iowa Penn State match, and that's pretty cool. And that's something. And speaking of that, I was just watching live on Kelly and Ryan in the morning, NBC or whatever it was the other day, and Kelly Ripa has a son that she's living in Michigan and Ann Arbor with her son right now, and I think her husband lives there too. But they had a really good segment on live Kelly and Ripa about the Michigan and Penn State wrestling match, and they went on, and she went on and on and on and on and on. Now, what she was saying and what I was thinking and what I saw were two different things. She was so excited, and by saying that on national news and people picking it up, that's great for our sport. We need some of that, and I love it that she has a son that's on the team, but she didn't. Like I said, she didn't see what I saw. I saw Michigan get beat up pretty good, and I was surprised that they were not more competitive. But and Penn State does have that momentum going into this week, and again, it's away from home. I don't know if that scares anybody or not. You know what might scare somebody is if all of a sudden they start at the lightweight, and all of a sudden Iowa gets a couple wins. then that might be. I mean, they're pretty good at that, those weights.
Right. Yeah.
So, I think that would make a big difference. Just getting that question mark in there. Anytime you get a question mark in there, except for like when Tom and Terry Brands Tom Brands used to wrestle, because Terry wrestled right before him, and Terry, I mean, when he went out, he won 99% of the time. But I said to Tom one time, I said, what happens when Terry wins right before you? He goes, well, that fires me up. That fires me up, and it makes me want to do really good. And I said, well, what happens if he loses? What's that do to you? And he said, if he loses, I have to win. I have to win. So I like it both ways. Not that I want Terry Brands to get beat, but he did a couple of times. Jason Calber, and right before he stepped on the mat, and Tom Brands had to step on to win a national title. That type of stuff. So it affected him in a positive way, no matter what happened. But he wanted the good thing to happen, So that's kind of interesting too for me. And that's a good philosophy, actually. It's a good philosophy, because a lot of times people sometimes depend on what happens before you in a match. And it should. Yeah.
Well, I was kind of wondering about that even before you talked about that was, how important you felt that momentum in a duel becomes, right? I mean, if Penn State comes out and wins those first three matches, which I don't think they're going to win all three, right? I think I don't know which one they're going to win, how it's going to go, but if they were to win those first three, it could get kind of wonky, on a momentum where
we'll know right away, won't we?
Yeah,
we'll know right away.
Yep.
We'll see what 49 does. If he's got that Tom Brands attitude, then we'll be okay. But I don't know if he's won a couple national titles yet either. So
no, he wins a lot of wrestling matches. Max Murin does, but he does not score enough points for me, and probably for you either. But he's a tough, hard-nosed wrestler for sure.
Yeah, and he actually does have some shots, but he just doesn't like to do them. Or he doesn't like to do them.
But,
Yep. Okay, we're sitting over that hour point. I do appreciate it. I'm going to do something we do that's on the Dakota Grappler, and it's going to be an interesting thing. We call it the rapid fire questions. And these are quick questions that we throw your way and see how you answer these. Okay? And you might be able to see them across the screen, but also read them. Okay, so the first question, what is it like to be coached by you if asked by your wrestlers?
Well, it depends on which wrestler you ask, but I'll tell you what, sometimes the answers that came out of their mouth were unbelievable. By that, I mean, it was like getting hit by a truck or something, I mean, there was something like crazy that they would say. And then you would get another person that would say, well, it was unbelievable. But you had a group of guys that were all different, but thrived on each other a little bit on that winning that we're talking about. And even the guys that really shouldn't have won had a really good chance to win on my team, because so many percentages of the kids were winning, even though they had no business winning and beating somebody. They probably could do it a lot easier.
Okay. Question quick from one of the coaches. Jim Makovsky said, did Terry or Troy Steiner ever take you down?
In their dreams.
I have another question. Did they ever get out from bottom?
I was pretty good on top now that I think about it. And they were pretty good on top too. But you know what? My philosophy is no matter where you're at, I'm going to pin you. But no, I'm sure they have. By the time they got there, that was early. When was that? That was in
early 90s. Yep, early 90s.
Yeah, I remember the first time I ever got tired in a practice. It was 1981. It was wrestling Lou Bannock. And when the practice got done, I said, wow, I'm tired. I just never experienced this. And so that's 1981. And that was 9 years after the Olympic Games that I won. And I was wrestling Lou Bannock, and I think he might have made me tired that day. But no, I think the big thing is I was inside their heads just because I was preaching all the time. I worked the room. There's nothing I could wrestle in a practice room facility and
With
see
everybody.
everything going on. But
did you wrestle everybody in the room?
When I was at Iowa State, I wrestled Chris Taylor often.
Oh.
And, but when I was for the first 15 years or so as a coach, probably I did.
Mm.
But then I got smarter, and sometimes you gotta do what you can only do.
Yep. Okay, next one: Gatorade or Powerade?
Well, right now I'm going to go with that Gable drink.
Gable drink.
Yeah, not the beer.
Okay. Popsicles or dilly bars?
Oh boy, I probably like a dilly bar better.
Okay.
And I was probably more thirsty, and I would probably usually have a popsicle because I was always sweating.
Yep. Okay. Give me 3 characteristics that all wrestlers need to have.
Well, you probably need to have some family support or somebody that's really taking you over, because it's hard to wrestle just for yourself. You got to wrestle for people that love you. And there's a lot of people that can learn to love you if you even don't have anybody, and you get out there and you got the Iowa crowd, they'll love you. So that'll be one of those things. So you get people to really, if you can appreciate people, that's a big thing. I think the other thing is probably, you just never give up. You just have that scare tactic. And you win a lot because that's how you get inside the people's heads. And the one thing that I can remember somebody telling me about my wrestling back when I wrestled, and I never thought about it that way. And what they said was, Gable, you punish people when you wrestle. You punish. I never looked at it like I was punishing. I didn't. I look at a punishment as like something really negative, but definitely scars you. And when a guy leaves the mat, or a girl, if they left and they have any hope, they're going to come back strong. They don't have any hope. I can remember Lloyd Keiser, who was a world champion. I had to beat him to make the Olympic team. He said, Gable, you're the only guy that I really ever thought that I couldn't beat. He couldn't beat me. Obviously, he couldn't beat me because
he thought he couldn't.
Yeah, exactly. That's where you want him, and that's kind of how the Russians. You scare them. You get to know. You get your reputation so high that people they're scared, and that holds them back.
Mama's boy or rebel?
Both.
We'll
take them both. Me?
Yeah, you.
I'm a
yes.
mama's boy. I'm a mama's boy. But, no, yeah, my mom told me what to do my whole life. She still does, even though she's in heaven, Yep. And I make a lot of decisions based on my mama.
That's awesome. Fast-paced or consistently slow?
Fast-paced, but I'm not doing the job.
Not out of control. Just
I'm not. I've got to do the job right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Physical or mental athlete?
Oh, first, always mentally. And if I can beat you mentally, you can't beat me. But I love to be physical too. So
I think it adds.
But I'm going to put the mental part, the first part.
Awesome.
I think when you get to the highest level, the person with that mentality is going to win.
Yep. Favorite holiday?
Ooh. I tell you, I love Christmas because there's about a month there that I get to watch a lot of good TV every year. Some of it's same stuff, but it's just so sentimental. Brings back so much to me. Whereas I can experience a lot of love and a lot of great things by and seeing new stories too. But I can watch the same old stories that I've watched for years and years, and it just brings back so many good memories.
You don't have to answer this next one, but this is a question that I give everybody else.
I give Dale Sanderson a lot of credit because I think, like John Smith, there's no counters to your takedowns, because you got them right at the ankles, you got them right at the knees, and I haven't seen many that can stop an ankle and knee. So, I give those guys a lot of credit, but, Cale's got a ways to go yet. He's younger than me.
Yeah.
That's
favorite number.
Oh, favorite number is I love number 1. I love number 7. I love number 11. And why do I love number 11? Because there's 2 number 1s. I also like number 7 because it's a lucky number. 7 and 11 too. They're both lucky numbers. But I really like the 11 because of 2 1s.
Okay. Tough question here. Best wrestler you ever wrestled?
Yeah, I think it goes back into my days when I was first starting, when I went overseas, when I go over to Russia, and I saw these guys that were just unbelievable. I think the guy that beat both Petersons.
Okay.
One of them beat him 180, then he moved up to 198, and he beat them both in the Olympic finals. Even though John won the Olympics in '76 and Ben won him in '72. I can't think of his name right now. That's crazy, but he now when he's a Georgian, and he was in the wine business afterwards. Okay. But he could do moves that he also did the other style of wrestling they do over there, and he learned a lot of these crazy type of throws, look like judo throws or those type of things. Sambo. So he had a lot of sambo in him. And Teddy Ishivili. Levon Tedishvili. I mean, he was unbelievable. And then the Bela Glazos. I saw a lot of these. There's about 10 Russians that I really thought were unbelievable, even though somebody ended up beating them. Yep. American ended up beating. John Smith beat Bela Glazos. But I think the skills and the excitement when I went to Russia quite a few times and saw some of that level of high skills always just made me hungrier.
I asked this question to Troy Steiner a couple of weeks ago. Is there any regrets you have going to some of these locations and just not enjoying the environment? Because you've got to travel the world. And later on, you probably did. But Troy had told me he was so focused, he had forgot that, guess what? I'm in a place, in
historic.
Right. In
I wasn't there for that.
Right.
That's the bottom line. I was there for competition. I learned my lesson with Owings. And even if I'm as a coach or an athlete, I'm not going to be there to enjoy what they have to offer.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line.
Okay.
Now I can go later if I want, maybe with a family, or even as a coach. Really, as a coach, you can't really do it either. But maybe I snuck in a little more as a coach.
Okay.
And enjoyed maybe what they did have to offer.
Okay. Any habit that you learned in wrestling, now that you're not coaching or anything, that you still do today?
Oh, yeah. Train.
Tons of them. Train.
Yeah, train. I never stop training. Every day. I just got a new knee 2 months ago. They took out my gallbladder about 4 months ago. I still hit the gym.
You love to train.
I love sauna. I love the steam. I love the hot tub. I love exercise. Yeah.
Okay. Swamp People Survivor or The Voice. Where would I find you?
I don't even know what that means.
The Voice is a competition show where you are good.
I think my wife watches it.
Okay. Would you be on The Voice, or The Survivor is just a survival show where you?
Is that that's not one where you're always naked, is it?
No. No.
You got one off. No naked. I wouldn't be on that one. I want cover up, but Survivor. I like Survivor. Just the name.
Yep.
Survivor. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Cat, bird, or dog?
I like dogs. I got. In fact, he's not here. He was here a little while ago.
I heard.
I don't have one, but it's my daughter lives right next door to me, and he lives over here a lot of it all the time. His name's Munich. I won the
Oh, it is Munich.
I won
right?
I won the Olympics in Munich, so he won me over. They won me over. The dog won me over when he named Munich.
Okay. And the last question. If you could have been a fly on the wall in some other coach's room, whose wrestling room would you have spied on?
Oh, Myron Roderick. Yeah, probably. That's back in the day, but
Yeah.
he actually coached me internationally some, and he was a character. Oh my gosh. I mean, yeah, I don't think there was too many holds barred. I don't think there was too many rules that probably weren't broken. He's just man. I tell you, he was kind of like Stan Abel, where Stan Abel was like he would say what he had to say, and real, false, make believe, whatever. But Roderick was just, I mean, if there was a bad call in Tbilisi, I mean, he would put on a show that they made sure that they don't be doing this bad call. He stuck up for his athletes. I love that.
Okay. Well, Bill, you get to fire a couple questions, and then we've been an hour and 20. You've been such a graceful guest, Mr. Gable.
Yeah, Coach, I just really appreciate you coming on. We've taken enough of your time, and you've answered a lot of questions I would have asked without never asking them, right? So this has been a lot of fun. I guess I do have one thing that kind of came to mind is you obviously recruited a lot of places throughout your career, and I think a lot of your athletes were Iowa athletes.
About 50%.
Outside of Iowa, where was your favorite place to recruit from?
Well, initially, when we built Iowa on Illinois boys. Okay. That's what we did. Yeah, the Chicago area. Yeah, Brad Smith. We also brought in Chuck Yagla from Iowa, and he was never even a state champion, but he ended up winning 2 championships and made the Olympic Games and was the outstanding wrestler in the United States of America. But I think New York helped a lot. There was I had a lot of people helping me. At that time, all of a sudden there was a new team that was coming up. And all of a sudden, in the state of Iowa, instead of having just Iowa State, which we had UNI, we had Cornell College. They all won national titles, but we had a 4 school now winning national titles, but a school that could really draw in the attendance and the following. And so all of a sudden, wrestling boomed in our state. All of a sudden, we had sellout crowds for 2 home duels. We at the first 4 or 5 years, we had home and home with Iowa State every year. So we had 2 duels, and there was a sellout there, sellout here, and it's just that was so much excitement, and that brought our sport up to a new level. So I mean, the state of Pennsylvania, they got a lot of our schools there. That doesn't take too much. Every once in a while, you got to boot them up a little bit. But, Lehigh's had a history. Penn State now is really booming. I mean, even though they were always, but not to the extent that they are now. Michigan has a chance. I mean, look at Michigan's hosting the Nationals this year.
Yep.
I mean, what if they win in Detroit?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure that Kale and I'm sure that the Brands boys don't want it, and I really don't want it. But for our sport, it's like, wow, that would be exciting. But it's like the chances, who knows what. And Oklahoma State's got the history and the history and the history. And John Smith, he's really wanting to win more titles. I can tell you that right now. He's a competitor, and I like that. The more Tom Ryan at Ohio State. He wants to win, and you have to have that. You just can't say, okay, wrestling's going to be won by this guy, team, and this team. North Carolina State. I mean, there's Missouri. I mean, no, they just got beat, I guess, but it's good to get that spread out a little bit, even though when I'm a coach, I'm pretty self-centered at that time, and you just got to do what you got to do. But I think we need more people thinking like that, and then that would give us a new way of build our fan base.
Yep. No, like I said many a times, Bill and I are here to promote the sport, and
Well,
you know, you need those people in all the states. I wish there was more people that did what we did in all the states, you know, and really kind of push the envelope a little bit, because wrestling in a lot of places is not number one. We try to make it number one, you know.
Well, I don't know if it's number one hardly any place, really. I mean, if you compare to, I mean, you go to the Olympic Games, where does it compare to the swimming? Where does it compare to the track and field? You know, yeah, sure, it might back home in certain countries, you know, they might want to watch that, but we got a long ways to go. And so we should never think that we can't build this to a bigger system and a better one. So that's kind of where we're at.
Yep. And then just the other day, Iowa did they sanctioned their state for
Actually,
girls wrestling.
Yeah, girls wrestling. Yeah.
And so
it took them a while. I mean, how many states are already there?
Yep. And
I mean,
Terry Steiner,
39th or whatever we were.
Yep.
Right.
It took a couple extra years, but they wanted to make sure. I don't know. Maybe we're a little conservative in Iowa.
Not bad. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
At any means. But no, just happy to have you on anytime. I tell you what, I'd love to visit with you. Anything you ever need in North Dakota, we'll send them your way. You know.
I already told you, when I think of the Dakotas, I think of wrestling, but I also think of fishing too. And the out of doors, because I'm an outdoors guy. So I mean, I live on 40 some acres of land. I got turkey and deer, and I got my grandkids bow and arrow hunting, and they're getting some trophy deer, and once in a while they get some turkeys. I just like to see the wildlife, you know, and it's here. And so you guys see some wildlife too. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Appreciate that.
Well, in North Dakota this week, guys, for wrestling, there's a lot of stuff going on, tons of duels. We're heading down to the final stretch. You know, we got about 3 weeks, at regions and then state. I know that Class A, we had some duels last night, a couple big things. So I think we ran our time limit on what we needed to do tonight. But if you guys need anything Dakota Grappler-wise, come over to the website, check it out. We always got results, and you can actually, you know, put your opinion on there on the message board if you want. Still do that. I appreciate everybody coming on, those people with the comments, you know, and questions. You know, we could probably spend all night, but
for sure. I mean,
you
can't believe the notes I had here. I mean, I got the Shears, I got
South Dakota.
I got Chad Lamer, I got the Wallmans. You know, I mentioned Wallmans, but you know, there's I just keep. Well, I looked it up and said, how many of these people? How many wrestlers? Hey, you've got some big name wrestlers.
Yep. Casey Gillis, you had for a bit.
Keep them going.
Yep, no doubt.
Casey Gillis.
Yep, another one. Yep, he's another Century grad. But no, you had so many. In fact, the Shears, I plan on having Bill and come on sometime. Those guys were big time helping me get into the sport back in when I coached in Mobridge, their hometown, for a little bit.
Wow, you did.
Yep, and so I got to know the Shears and know the whole connection with all those. You know, another person that's probably the best coach in the state of North Dakota, Jeff Schumacher. He's a
former Hawkeye guy here. Hawkeye Wrestling Club, right?
Yep.
Hawkeye. Skinny little guy, you know, back in the day.
And he's still coaching. Yeah,
Schumacher. Yeah, love that guy.
Yep, he was one of those that I've heard some stories. You know, Ursland, he coached at Minot State for a little while.
Robin.
Yep.
Robin. Yep.
He was one of my favorites. Hawkeye Wrestling Club for years.
Yeah, and then of course having Jamestown College, he is your assistant for many years, and then
also
as head coach, Jim Zaleski. Yeah. So we get him in the state every once in a while. Definitely.
No, like I said, wrestling's pretty popular there, even though some people might not know it.
Yep.
And I love that.
Well, thank you so much. We're going to call it for the night. You guys, thank you so much, Dan. Great guest, and you know, we'll talk to you again. I appreciate it. Guys.
Thanks a lot.